We're talking today to Ian Russell, who is a local artist and he specialises in watercolours. Can I ask you first of all, Ian, how long have you actually been painting?
About 25 years, I guess. Started with evening classes, was not terribly successful, I have to say. And it finally began to make sense when I spent some time with David Green, who's a very well-known professional artist, and he really set me on the road to painting rather more successfully.
And how do you go about your work?
Well, I have to admit, and this is a bit embarrassing really, that I do tend to work from photographs, which is not a recommended way. The whole thing is you take the photograph as a reference, but the clue to a successful painting is not to paint all the detail and everything that you know is there, but just get the basic elements, to get rather an impression of the scene rather than minute detail.
And why is it so tricky to do watercolour painting?
Well, it isn't tricky to do watercolour painting, but it is tricky to do them quite nicely. And I think there are many common mistakes that amateur painters make. They tend to do a fairly detailed drawing and then fill in the spaces almost as they were painting by numbers, with solid blocks of solid colour. And the whole thing about watercolour is it's the accidents that sometimes make the painting more exciting, when the water goes where you didn't expect it to, or the colour flows in a slightly unexpected way, and it gives a very slightly surreal effect. And I think that's the beauty of watercolour painting. There's always a little element of surprise or panic, or is this one going to work out? Well, that's the way it is with me anyway.
So you can't go over it like you do with oil painting?
No, that is the big problem. The success, again, to successful watercolour painting is the brightness and the luminosity of a good watercolour painting is the white paper showing through the colour washes. So you need to keep the colour washes basically fairly light and not too many of them. And as soon as you start going over and over and repainting, really you're lost.
So how would you go about starting a painting then, after your photograph?
Well, the thing is to get the image very loosely on the paper, not detailed drawing, not fine detail, but just the general layout of the painting without too much detail. The next thing is to remember that what you don't want to do, as I said before, is to put little blocks of colour in. I tend to start by painting a pale wash of a fairly warm colour across the whole of the paper, which then tends to just give it a nice little bit of a warm glow, a nice summery feeling if it's a summer image. The other thing is that if you have something like a white boat sitting in the middle of the painting, you can leave that white completely untouched with no wash on it at all, so that in the final painting that will be the lightest part of the painting and it should really sing out. And then it's a case of, yes, is big washes and big brushes. Another very common mistake with watercolour painters is they go for a tiny brush and start putting in lots and lots of detail. And the secret is to use a big brush, pick one up, look at it, put it down and pick the next size up. Lay on the wash very, very loose, and to vary the technique of how you brush. Sometimes you'll just drop some colour into water that's already on the paper. Sometimes you'll wait for it to dry and just with a big brush you put some dry brush in, so that you get different textures and techniques, rather than just flat colour all the time.
So if anyone's interested, they can get in touch with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ian. Thank you. It's a really fascinating subject.
Thank you.